My mom likes your virtual background. I told her, she said, her house is so beautiful. I said,
Madam Chair, we are now live.
Thank you. You can go ahead and tell your mom that she can get one too. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Today is December 13th, 2021, and I call this meeting to order. This is the Finance and Government Operations Committee of the Council, the City Council. All committee members are supposed to be present today, although we're waiting on a couple for now, but we expect them shortly. This is a remote or online meeting where all participants will be on video or audio conference, and we appreciate your patience as FGO meetings are conducted this way. Written comments were received today for today's meeting and were provided to members of the committee, and members of the public have the opportunity to address the committee if they have signed up for live public comment per the rules published on the agenda and on our website Friday. Members of the public, city staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting live through YouTube and Zoom webinar. The live stream can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. And for those watching on the live stream, thank you for joining us. We are going to go ahead and start with public comment tonight. And did people show up for public comment tonight, Mr. Moya?
Madam Chair, yes, we have 5 people here for public comment.
Perfect, thank you. So hello to those joining us to provide public comment. If you are watching the YouTube live feed for this meeting, please mute or turn it off at this time. Here are the public comment ground rules. Comments are to be addressed to the committee members only. Each participant will have 1.5 minutes to present. Any disruptive conduct will result in removal from the Zoom meeting room. There will be a 1.5 minute time limit, and the timer will start once you begin speaking. And then the Zoom moderator, Mr. Moya, will let you know when your time is up. Mr. Moya, if you will please call the name of the first speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our first speaker is Grace Allison. Grace, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Thank you. My name is Grace Allison. I've been a tax lawyer for more than 40 years. Over the past decade or so, I have run 2 low-income taxpayer clinics, one at the University of New Mexico School of Law and one at New Mexico Legal Aid. Over and over again, I have seen firsthand the disastrous economic consequences to Albuquerqueans of shoddy or even fraudulent commercial income tax preparation. But you don't have to believe just me. In the written materials that I submitted for today's session, there's a link to a National Consumer Law Center report that details tax preparer business practices and business products that hit middle and low income taxpayers hard this year. Your tax preparers ordinance and the largely technical amendments prepared by the city are a step in the right direction. I hope they will not be deferred into oblivion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. Our next speaker is Deborah Carnes-Padilla. Deborah, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councilors, for allowing me to speak tonight in support of Resolution 221. That will adopt the Age-Friendly Action Plan and the Department of Senior Affairs to continue its work to advocate and engage older adults in Albuquerque. My name is Deborah Carnes-Padilla, and I am an advisory council member for the Department of Senior Affairs and a member of the Age-Friendly Committee. This resolution will help highlight how, as a city, we can continue to help grow services that not only help older adults, but can have a positive impact for all generations growing up in Albuquerque. So they are not just surviving, but thriving. I have witnessed the hard work of the Department of Senior Affairs during the pandemic and greatly appreciate how this resolution champions their future efforts to grow and advocate for older adults. I look forward to continuing to work with Senior Affairs and the Age-Friendly Committee to help assess and recommend new age-friendly strategies, such as engaging older and younger adults in advocacy and volunteerism that help prepare for a better quality of life. Thank you, Councilor Pena, for pushing this forward, and for all the counselors who can continue to support our seniors. Thank you very much.
Councilor Borrego, did you have a question for Ms. Carnes-Padilla?
No, I just wanted to thank Ms. Carnes-Padilla. She's one of my constituents. And I just want to thank her for being on here and for her volunteerism. She's been very active in Cibola Loop, and I very much appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next speaker is Perry Bendixson. Perry, please feel free to turn your video on. I see you're on. Unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilors, Perry Bendixson with the Rohde Law Firm. We represent Hope Christian Schools with respect to the IRBs that are the subject of 085. I have no statement, but would be pleased to try with Tom Crow, who's also on, to answer any questions about that issue that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bendixson. I think that we have you on the script for later this evening as we get to that on the agenda, if you're able to stick around in case there's further questions. And welcome to Councilor Pena, who has joined us for the record. Mr. Moya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next speaker is Tom Crow. Mr. Crow, please feel free to turn your video on, unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Hi, everybody. Madam Chair and all counselors, I appreciate the time. And again, as Perry said, I'm here on behalf of Hope Christian School, and I can stick around as long as needed, but mostly here to answer questions. No prepared statement at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I will leave them in the meeting for when that item comes up, and they can be available for questions.
Thank you, gentlemen, all of you.
Our last speaker is Dr. Joseph Sanchez. Please feel free to unmute yourself, and your time will begin when you start speaking.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the City Council. My name is Dr. Joseph Sanchez, AARP New Mexico State Director. I'd like to share AARP's support of R221, approving the One Albuquerque Age-Friendly Action Plan. This resolution will engage local community leaders and residents to consider issues and initiatives that can make Albuquerque thrive as an age-friendly community, and I commend the Council's consideration towards building a foundation that allows people to age at home in their community. The city has the opportunity to help plan for the future for people of all ages through economic growth, urban development, and the expansion of health and community services. And with the city's Department, Senior Affairs, we can advocate and engage others through the Age-Friendly Action Plan, whether it is volunteerism on a greater scale, ways of supporting local economic development, or ensuring access to transportation and housing as our population ages. The Age-Friendly Action Plan is a call to people from our community to help Bernalillo County residents prepare for the longevity of aging and encouraging respect and inclusion for people of all ages and abilities. In closing, I thank you for making aging issues a top priority and for allowing me time to speak on this important issue.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. Madam Chair, that will conclude general public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Moya, and thank you to all those who have joined us for those comments. We're going to move on to agenda item A, which is EC 472, Department of Arts and Culture FY21 Priority Objective, Goal 7, Objective 4, regarding a study of the options for creating a biopark admissions assistance program. I move a receipt be noted. Thank you, Councilor Seneff with the second. Any questions or comments, councilors?
I would actually like to ask if Madam Chair, Director Shell Sanchez could speak on this. This has been a long-term goal of ours.
Sure. Director Sanchez, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councilor Pena. Yeah, we're very excited about discussing the possibilities, and talking about the ways that we can make the biopark and frankly, all of our cultural institutions ensure that they're financially accessible for our entire community. As you all know very well, the city of Albuquerque puts a significant amount of time and financial resources and staffing resources into making the biopark an incredible place for our community. And we just want to make sure that everyone can share in these amazing resources. And, we appreciate the direction from council to look and find some additional ways to consider in terms of how that could happen. So these are our ideas for consideration, and we look forward to your feedback on our proposals.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Director Sanchez. There's some options here. I think there's 3 options that we have on the table in terms of providing access for people who otherwise can't attend our facilities. And I look forward to seeing which one is the one that ends up getting approved at the end of the day. Of course, I'm supportive of the first option, but I'm only one vote. So thank you, Director. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Any other questions, counselors? Ms. Hinojos, if you'll please take a vote.
Borrego.
Yes.
I don't believe Councilor Harris has joined the meeting yet. Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
That passes on a unanimous vote, 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item B, EC 473 is the second amendment to the lease between the City of Albuquerque Aviation Department and the Department of Commerce National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration National Weather Service. I move approval. Thank you, Councilor Sena. Thank you, Councilor Borrego with the second. Any questions or comments, councilors? All right, Ms. Hinojos, if you'll please.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item C is EC 474, approval of the risk first supplemental agreement to add funds for FY22 outside council legal services between German Burnett and Associates LLC and the City of Albuquerque. I move approval. Thank you, Councilor Borrego. With a second, any questions or comments, councilors? Ms. Hinojos, if you will, please.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena. Councilor Sena. Thank you. Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item D is EC 475, lease agreement between Zia Community Cares LLC and the City of Albuquerque at 5400 Gibson Boulevard, Southeast. I move approval. Thank you, Councilor Sena with a second. Any questions or comments, councilors? All right, Ms. Hinojos, if you'll take a vote.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item E is EC 481, Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency 2021 Annual Report. I move a receipt be noted. Thank you, Councilor Sena with a second. Councilor Borrego. Miss Iverson, would you care to give us any kind of commentary or briefing on that?
Yes, I have a brief presentation if you would like.
Yes, please, and thank you.
All right. So I'm really excited to share with you today our annual report. We've been really smoking at the MRA agency. Our 2021 impact included several residential projects along Central Avenue, bookending with getting the residential project at Untitled Central and also seeing a new phase of the Highlands projects come online. We had about $78 million of total investment. That's not only the city's investment, but the private investment as well. And to kind of give you a sense of scale, looking back over the 20 prior years, averaging out, we had about $26 million a year of investment. So last year, we saw a threefold increase. We generally leverage our money 10 to 1. So we invested about $7 million to achieve that $78 million of investment. One of the programs that we did last year that was very unique for MR is we administered the outdoor dining program to serve as a lifeline to restaurateurs, but also for those of us wanting to patronize businesses. We lent out about $500,000 to restaurants and covered all city council districts and really got a very wide diversity of business owners through that program. Looking ahead, our pipeline is even more robust. Our programs are one of the reasons why we are having such a robust program pipeline with MR is we're really seeing a lot of utilization of the tax abatement program. So that provides us a lighter, more nimbler touch, not the heavy-handed, acquiring a big property that needs a lot of investment and turnaround like the rail yards, just sort of offering an incentive. And we've seen a lot of access into that. One of the things that we did this year is we had, one of the things we did a couple of years that has helped us have such a big pipeline now going forward is we got some loan repayments recently from some downtown projects, San Felipe Apartments and Old Albuquerque High paid off some loans, and we put that money back out on the street, again, looking for ways that we can partner with the private sector, provide incentives on projects that they're sort of trying to move forward, but for our financial assistance are a little stuck. So we have several projects that were a result of that funding that we put out on the street. One of the main things that we're really trying to do in MR is, while we have a specific tool that we're known for, we're really trying to be holistic in how we need to approach revitalization and redevelopment. The strategies that we've put forward in this plan going forward are, one, just wanting to bring businesses back, especially downtown. And so right now we have a storefront grant offering between $30,000 and $35,000 to businesses that are locating in the downtown area. We're also really focused on building more housing, as you all know and have invested lots of money into. The city needs more housing of all income strata. In the downtown area, we have had quite an investment in low and income housing, and we're looking at providing a diversity of housing in the downtown area. We also are focusing on this rail trail strategy, which I'll get into in a minute. And then finally, MRA, we really need to find some robust financing tools. I know historically, Councilor Borrego did a lot of work on vetting the tax increment finance tools, and we really need to look at figuring out how to make MR have the same kind of tax increment tools that greenfield development like the TID districts get. And so that's some policy work that we hope to engage with the council on. So the rail trail is really an anchor for our downtown redevelopment strategy. It goes from Lomas to the rail yards. And it's, when I first started, I looked at a map of where there was redevelopment potential. This area just screamed out. There's just a large swath of underutilized property. And the reason is because of this rail corridor and the way that it bifurcates our downtown. And you end up with just huge areas that are not being utilized, as this is sort of our A corner for the city in general. We already broke ground on phase 1, which is the Marquette crossing here. I, for one, live at 11th and Lomas, and now I work up here at Arno and Central, so I cross through here every day. And it is a nightmare to get through here. And having an at-grade crossing right here at Marquette will provide a pedestrian-friendly way to get back and forth. And you can see here by some of these pictures that these inner city sites can really be surprising and engaging if we activate them. And we've got great bones in this corridor that if we put the investment into them, we can really make them shine. So we just released the rail trail plan. And one of the things that was great about our strategies is that this isn't just a trail, but we also have a lot of infill opportunity where we are currently partnering with the developers. And that was some of our pipeline projects, are many of these projects, the Springer Square project and the bridge into the convention center. Innovate, we funded, we hope to, we're in the process of negotiating that for their next phase for the Hatch Space, the bioscience incubator. First and Silver, we have here that we're negotiating with Jay Remby on developing here. So you can see here that we've got the infrastructure, we've got the amenities going in, and we also are filling it in with the adjacent development. And then what's really exciting about these types of trails, which are in many, many cities, is that it's not just a physical trail that you get through and we get across the tracks, but it also becomes a very exciting cultural destination. And we found lots of opportunities for art. Sherry Brueggerman facilitated a time traveler artist engagement exercise through this with 10 different artists. So this is really going to become an avenue of that celebrates all the layers of history that we have through this corridor. We are also right now working on a university redevelopment area. When you look at the areas that are MR plans, there's one hole. We got all of the central except for this hole, which is Nob Hill in the university area. And so we are working on a plan for at least the university area here, trying to fill in this whole corridor so we can really capture and catalyze the transit investment that's in the area. And so in conclusion, I think working on all of this, a lot of people automatically ask me about, well, how are you going to do this when it comes, how are you going to do this in the context of the struggles that we have with crime and homelessness? And I would say that all of this is a strategy of bringing people downtown, activating downtown. We got to do a yes and strategy. Those departments are working on those, but we're working on the exciting part of bringing businesses and bringing activation downtown. And that is a strategy to help address those concerns as well.
Thank you, Ms. Iverson. Councilor Borrego, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had just a comment and a question. Karen, I think that Nob Hill is an MR area. I'm pretty sure it is. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, I'd like to talk to you about that because we did designate that area. And in fact, it was designated all the way to San Mateo. So just FYI, you might want to take a look at your records on that one. And then my question is with regard, we just included the area around Kmart and on Carlisle and that whole area that I know Councilor Gibson is working on. So I'm just wondering how much money is in the MR fund and how you're looking to leverage that fund, because more and more areas are becoming redevelopment potentials, I guess, or friendly. And these areas are going to be competing for funding. So I'm just curious about what your thoughts are regarding that.
Yes. So there is a plan that's called the Upper Nob Hill plan that goes from Carlisle up to San Mateo, but that very historic district, between Carlisle and Girard has not yet become an MRA area because I think that they really enjoy the historic nature of that corridor. We currently have about $1 million of unencumbered funds in the MR fund. A large majority of that is brownfields funds that have been revolved. And you're absolutely right. The MR fund has been, the funds that we have used for MR have been oftentimes geo bond funds. And so this past round, we had $2 million for MR, but we really need to look at creating financing tools where we're capturing tax increments. So, if you create a new area, it can bring its own tax increment funding to the table. And we do not have those tools. I believe you probably struggled with wrestling with the county on figuring out how to set up a district-wide tax increment district. And I think we really need to pick that ball up again and look at creating sort of a self-generating funding mechanism for MR where we're capturing tax increments.
Hugh, I hope you'll pursue that, because we did try to work on that. We had several meetings with the county. This was in mid 2000, I guess, about 2005 or so. Well, that's not really mid, I guess that's early. We were really struggling with that. So I hope that that's something that you guys can work through. And there's a new group in the county, so hopefully they'll be a little more receptive this time. I'm a little concerned about the redevelopment fund, because there was a point in time back in 2000, probably about like 2007 or so, when we had $25 million in that fund. And I know that we've invested a lot and we've bought properties and so on, but to see that fund is, at almost a zero. I mean, $1 million is not very much money. So, I'm hopeful for that for the future, I guess is what I'm saying. And I want to thank you, Karen, because you've done a really great job with the MR projects. And I really appreciate your insight and the skills that you've brought to that division. And I also want to thank you for spearheading the outdoor dining, because that was my bill. And, I am really excited about how that played itself out during the pandemic. And I want to give you credit where credit is due, because I know that you handled that. So I'm really thankful for your expertise.
Thank you, Councillor Borrego. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Iverson. So we have a motion for a receipt be noted, and that was a great presentation. Ms. Hinojos, if you can please take a vote.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena. Councilor Sena?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Basan?
Yes,
That passes unanimously.
thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item F. EC 482 is approving a supplemental agreement with Jaramillo Law Firm PC. I move approval. Thank you, Councilor Borrego, for a second. Councilor Sena. And any questions or comments, councilors?
Madam Chairman.
Oh, welcome. Hi, Councilor Harris.
Sure. I was actually here for the last vote, and then I didn't realize I wasn't a panelist until I was passed over. So I vote yes.
Thank you. Our apologies.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so any questions for this agreement? I see Mr. Padilla.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. This is for our lobbyist in Santa Fe, and I'm going to request immediate action so that we can get him paid before the session starts. So just after you guys vote on this, I'm going to request immediate action.
Sounds good. Noted. Thank you. Ms. Hinojos, if you'll take a vote.
Councilor Borrego,
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
thank you. Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Basan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll make a motion for immediate action. Thank you, Councilor Sena. And Ms. Hinojos?
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Peña,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Basant.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item G is 077. This is for Counselor Davis, amending Article 20 of Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances of Albuquerque, the Albuquerque Tax Preparer and Consumer Rights Ordinance regarding requirements for tax preparation services. I move a deferral until January 10th. No seconds. Any seconds? Counselor Peña, thank you. Questions or comments, counselors? All right, Ms. Hinojos, if you will please take a vote.
Counselor Borrego,
No.
Counselor Harris. Counselor Harris.
Counselor, I think you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Peña.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Basant.
Yes.
That passes on a 4-1 vote.
Thank you. Agenda item H is 085, authorizing the issuance and sale of the City of Albuquerque, New Mexico tax exempt industrial revenue bonds, Hope Christian Schools Incorporated Project Series 2022 in the maximum principal amount of $8,500,000 to I, refinance the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of an educational facility. II, fund any required reserve funds, and III, pay expenses related to issuance of bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a financing agreement, bonds, and other documents in connection with the issuance of the bonds and the project, making certain determinations and findings relating to the bonds and the project, ratifying certain actions taken previously, and repealing all actions inconsistent with this ordinance. I move it to pass. Thank you, Counselor Peña, with the second. And I do know that we still have Mr. Crow and then Mr. Bendixson, and it says that we have Ms. Groom here as well. If there's any questions from the counselors at all, I believe Mr. Griego did the write-up on this as well. Mr. Muirhead, would you like to add in anything?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this, just to give you a quick background of the legal requirements here, any 501c3 federally, a federal nonprofit corporation can seek federally tax exempt financing for capital projects. In the state of New Mexico, that is handled through the Industrial Revenue Bond Act, which allows municipalities and counties to issue bonds on behalf of these institutions to get federally tax exempt debt. The reason for that is the Internal Revenue Code recognizes that these institutions can borrow on a federally tax exempt basis, but does not provide the ability for them to do it directly. They have to go through a governmental entity. So the school sought out the city as the conduit issuer on the bonds so that they could enter into a transaction with BBVA Compass PNC as the lender to refinance a new school building for the elementary that they built. And I'll allow Mr. Crow can give you much better background on that. And so the city's role is just to be the conduit. They're not providing any additional tax benefits or incentives to the school other than the benefits that the school currently enjoys just as a business in Albuquerque. So happy to answer any questions. It's really a unique thing just driven by the Internal Revenue Code that does provide benefits to 501c3s. The most recent transaction like this that the council would have seen was in 2017, issued similar bonds for the Roadrunner Food Bank. And totally the same kind of situation. They were renovating. That was part of the financing and then refinancing some existing debt. But so that's happy to answer any questions. If you need more background, I know Mr. Crow, Mr. Bendixson, and I see Teresa Groom's name down here. They're all available to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Muirhead. And I don't know if you want to answer this or if I should go to one of them, but I know that we're going to be requesting immediate action due to some technicalities with banking. And I'm wondering if you want to discuss that while we're here talking about it.
Yeah, Madam President, or Madam Chair, members of the The committee, this, as I understand it, in talking with the school's lawyer, Mr. Ben Dixon, as well as the bank's lawyer, who is in the waiting room, if you do want to hear from her, that this deal has been percolating for a long time with the bank to refinance their existing debt. It was kind of held up for the last several months as BBVA, Compass, and PNC merged their financial institutions, delaying transactions. So the school has patiently been waiting for that all to come together. That has recently happened, and I think the city's just trying to move as expeditiously as possible to enable the school to close on it and start paying that lower interest rate.
Thank you, Mr. Muirhead. And counselors, any questions at this time? Mr. Crow, did you want to say anything at all or add anything further?
I don't really have anything to add. It was mostly result of the time delay between the two banking merger and the acquisition there of Compass by Compass by PNC, and basically the building is finished and occupied and it's going great. We turned basically an empty lot full of dirt into a beautiful school there on Paseo, and would appreciate your approval on this.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. All right, if there are no further questions or comments, counselors, we can go ahead and vote on this. Ms. Hinojos?
Council Borrego,
Yes.
Council Harris,
Yes.
Council Pena,
Yes.
Council Sena,
Yes.
Council Basan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Hinojos. I would like to make a motion for immediate action. Thank you, Councilor Sena, for the second. Ms. Hinojos?
Council Borrego,
Yes.
Council Harris,
Yes.
Council Pena,
Yes.
Council Sena,
Yes.
Council Basan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item I, this is 086 for Councilor Benton. Amending Chapter 2, Article 1 of the revised ordinances of Albuquerque relating to the operations and meetings of the City Council to repeal sections already addressed by rule or charter. I move it do pass. Thank you, Councilor Sena. Councilor Sena?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment, and I did want to just talk to if we can actually have Mr. Melendrez bring up the amendment and also just discuss overall of what the purpose of this is for.
Madam Chair, Councilor Sena, so this bill proposes to deal with some duplications that exist in city ordinance. The provisions within these ordinances are all duplicates of what's already contained in the City Council Rules of Procedure or in the city charter. As time has gone on, the rules of procedure have been updated to reflect current state law and current practices of the council, but there's been a few instances where the ordinance has sort of been neglected to be updated, and evaluating it as essentially completely duplicative of other sections. This bill proposes to simply repeal it in large part so that as time goes on and updates need to be made, they can be made in a single place and more appropriately housed within the council rules of procedure. This amendment that's before you is to update two developments that occurred since the bill was introduced. The first is, after consulting with our council attorney, Julia Couladon, and with the city legal department, we identified that the city charter actually does prescribe some minimum reference as to when the council will meet, and the charter prescribes that occur by ordinance. And so on paragraph 2 of the amendment that's before you, you'll see that this amendment proposes to simply leave in that the regular meetings of the council shall be held on the first and third Monday of each month. And then we're adding the language as more specifically prescribed by the City Council Rules of Procedure. And that will continue to accomplish the objective of housing the specifics of that in one place in the Rules of Procedure, where the council has complete authority over how to prescribe its rules for itself in that regard. Paragraph 3 addresses a section that was originally proposed to remain in the bill. That section is titled Oath of Office. In looking through the rules of procedure and the city charter, that was one section that we did not see as being duplicative, at least not at first. However, upon further looking at a broader sort of body of law, looking at the New Mexico Constitution, Article 20, Section 1 of the Constitution does prescribe the oaths of office for all public offices within the state. And so in that sense, this ordinance would also be duplicative of that standard set forth by the New Mexico Constitution, and other state law would be guiding as well. So this paragraph 3 proposes to repeal that section 2111 oath of office based on the similar rationale that it too is actually duplicative of standards that are better housed elsewhere.
Thank you. And I'll second your amendment. Any other comments or questions, Counselor?
Oh, sorry.
No, that was aimed at you, Counselor. Sorry, Counselor Sena.
Yeah, I just, again, this is pretty much a cleanup. I'll also be requesting for immediate action for the overall bill, just so that we have these standards set for the incoming council. I just wanted to be sure and be clear about that.
Sounds good. Counselors, any other questions or comments? All right. Well, Ms. Hinojos.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Basan.
Yes.
One
And-
passes unanimously.
Thank you. So now we're going to go ahead and I move to do pass for this. Now we'll do it as amended. Any questions on the overall bill sponsored by Councilor Benton? All right, Ms. Hinojos.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Basan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Councilor Sena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion for immediate action.
Sounds good. Second by Councilor Pena and Borrego. Thank you. Ms. Hinojos.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Basan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Agenda item J is R122. Councilor Borrego.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to this particular item, we have not received any information from the DA's office at this time. So I'm going to defer this to March 14th, and hopefully one of our counselors at that time will take it up and move forward with it. So I make a motion to defer until March the 14th.
Thank you, Councilor Sena with the second. Any questions or comments? Ms. Hinojos.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Basan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
I have a
Agenda. Oh,
question.
go ahead, Councilor.
Who's the sponsor of this bill?
I am, Counselor.
I'd like to, I don't know if it's too late, maybe ask Mr. Melendrez. Would Councilor Basan or Councilor Pena be interested in being a co-sponsor? Because I think the bill dies if it's only a councilor, if the only councilor sponsoring it leaves the council. Is that true, Mr. Melendrez?
Madam Chair, Councilor Harris, yes, bills that are continuing to be in the legislative process after a councilor's term ends are automatically deemed died on expiration at the end of the councilor's term.
Would could I interest Councilor Basan or Councilor Pena to co-sponsor this bill? Can I make a motion for that? they want to?
How would we do that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Harris, it's completely at the discretion of the individual councilors whether or not they'd want to sponsor it or not.
Okay, I just throw that out there in case they want to.
Counselor, Madam Chair, I'm
Go
just
ahead.
wondering if we could take this discussion up at council and see if somebody would be interested, unless we can do it at this time. I don't know if we can do it at this time, or if we have to have the full council available, or Chris.
At this point, the bill is simply being deferred, and if a councilor wants to pick up sponsorship, that's something that we can do just with the request to the clerk of the council. So it doesn't have to happen at this meeting, and just by simply deferring at this time, nothing is technically happening to the bill as of today. So if somebody does want to pick it up, they will still have that opportunity through the end of the year.
So probably I would like to have that discussion with Councilor Pena, Councilor Bassan, or both, if you'd like. And then maybe we could I could write a directive or something to the council of the clerk.
Okay, so it's
Or
my
the-
understanding, Mr. Melendrez, that we can go ahead and agree to this, not at this moment in time, but just as long as it happens before December 31st, correct?
If it's the, Madam Chair, correct. If it's the will of any particular councilor to take over sponsorship, they can do that at any time. And we can communicate that to the clerk. We'll add that name to the bill and they'd be able to continue.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Melendrez.
I said
Yeah.
the council of the clerk, I meant the clerk of the council.
I
Thank
would
you.
hate to see this die at the end of this term. I think that it is an important bill. So I think that it's definitely worthy of a conversation, whether it be myself or someone else, so we can work forward and move on with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilor Harris, for pointing that out.
Oh, it's
So
good
moving on.
lawyer on staff and on the council.
Moving on to agenda item K. This is R220 for Councilor Gibson, calling for the city of Albuquerque to explore alternative forms of government through a study to be presented to city leadership, identifying key aspects of the city. I move it to pass. Any seconds? Okay, then. Is that a second, Councilor Senna?
Mostly to continue the conversation, but I also wanted to see if this would be without recommendation rather than a due pass.
I would be happy to change my motion to without recommendation.
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. I also have an amendment.
Okay, so we're going to, for the record, say that you seconded without recommendation, the motion for without recommendation. And if you would like to continue with your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You'll see on the screen that my amendment is also incorporating as part of the study, if we're evaluating all forms of government, to look at surrounding governments as well, which would also include a joint city-county form of government.
Thank you, Councilor Borrego with a second. And any questions or comments, councilors?
Madam Chair, if I can also explain that amendment in further depth.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. So I know that this conversation even predates me. I know that Councilor Sanchez was evaluating this even when he was on commission. And I think certainly through the pandemic, it's something that we've all seen, that many of our community need assistance. And oftentimes, if they were in the county, they would be precluded from the city. And that played out through our grants, through our assistance, from our small business to eviction prevention. It also has been a concern of many of my constituents where they actually are in the county, and when they dialed 911, specifically of a constituent who had someone that was shooting at them, dialed 911, and there was actual discussion that they actually were in the county rather than the city. Although fire does this very well, where if there's a fire wherever it may be, whether it's in the county or in the city, they respond and work well with one another to get someone assistance at that moment. However, we don't always do the best when it comes to police. And so it's a big public safety concern. And so with this amendment, it would also incorporate, if we're evaluating these forms of government, we should also look at what else we can be doing when it comes to efficiency, when it comes for better financing, and how we can actually include all parts of our community when it comes to public safety.
Thank you, Councillor Senna. Any questions, councillors? I have one question. I know that it was said to be estimated that this study originally would be approximately $30,000. Do we know how much this study might cost us by adding this on? It makes sense to me as far as what we're trying to expand the scope, but I am concerned about the cost for the study. Does anyone on staff know that amount? Just the estimate? Ms. Morris, welcome.
Madam Chair, councillors, you are correct in suggesting that this would increase the scope. I agree. It's different from what was originally in the bill, and so it would increase the scope, but I'm not quite sure by how much. That would be something we could look into between FGO and full council for sure, to give you guys a better sense of what that price would be.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Morris. And if you would, that will be another question I ask when we get to full council on this bill, because I definitely am curious. I'm not a giant fan of studies in a lot of ways, so to know how much it's going to cost will be a definite relevant question, I believe. Councillor Harris?
Yes, thank you. And I think there's a state statute that allowed for this to be done by a referendum, both in the city and the county. We had that referendum that lost, but nobody was actually, I think there would have been a lot of interest groups that could have helped educate people to show why this could be a good idea, but nobody jumped in. I think the Chamber of Commerce and some other business groups would realize that a joint government could actually be beneficial, and so forth. But in any case, because I believe it would involve an election at the end of the day, we might need some more money for this study.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Borrego?
Yes, Madam Chair, I was just wondering, because I was thinking back about when this came up before. I think it came up with the Good Government Group and Dave Campbell when he was involved back in that. And I think that there was actually, as Councillor Harris mentioned, some discussion about referendum. I don't know that it ever actually got to that point, but I just wondered, as I'm sitting here thinking about the history of this discussion in the past, I'm just wondering what initiated this conversation. If anybody knows, probably none of us know, and maybe I'll ask that question at council. But I mean, there's some issues that are related to land use, especially as we did the IDO. And then, the county never adopted the comprehensive plan as amended. They never moved forward to adopt the IDO. So I'm just curious about what initiated this particular conversation. And I don't know that any of us know the answer to that, but it'd be interesting to find that out a little bit.
Well, I see Ms. Morris is back on. Do you have a comment on that, an answer? Because I don't want to speak on behalf of the sponsor.
Madam Chair, councillors, yeah, you're right. This is probably a question that would be better answered by the sponsors, but I think the sponsors were generally interested in investigating different ways of managing, administering and running a city and thinking about different ways to do that. And I think COVID probably made people think about a lot of things, and this is maybe one of those thoughts that came up is this, are we doing the best we can? And is there a different approach that might be a more effective one?
Madam Chair, it just seems to me like a bill like this or a study of this sort would best serve us in an intergovernmental form of committee. But I'm just thinking out loud. So just some thoughts.
Thank you, counselors. Thank you, Ms. Morris. I'm having more technical difficulties with my screen, but that's okay. You'll all be dim now. Counselor Senna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that was partly why I wanted to have this without recommendation so that we can have this conversation on this overall resolution. I think it is, I couldn't speak on the intent of the sponsors, of course. I can only speak on the intent of my amendment. So I know that there's even more history beyond that. From my understanding, Councilor Ken Sanchez brought this up quite a lot, even from when council was even originally created back in 1974. That's why I said it predates even my existence. So I just wanted to make sure that, for my amendment specifically, and I think as we're having these conversations, if we're really looking at all forms of government that would be best efficient to service our communities, this is something that was also an issue that, of course, Councilor Sanchez saw as a commissioner, even as a counselor, and even still to this day that certainly my district, I know other districts are seeing that as well when it comes to providing services to our community. We always have to ask them, well, what color is your trash can? It's either green or blue. And if it's green, then you're in the county. And oftentimes they're so frustrated that, they're really seeking for assistance, especially when it comes to public safety issue in needing and requesting police presence. That's something that's not on their mind is their trash can green or blue. And so this is really, hopefully the study will actually answer a lot of these questions. What would that look like in terms of, comprehensive plans? What about their economic development compared to ours? How would that be beneficial? Hopefully the study will work out those kinks if this resolution also passes.
Thank you, Councilor Senna. Okay. So we are going to be voting on a motion without recommendation. Any other questions or comments?
Counselor, we do first need a vote on the amendment.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Hinojos. So we will take a motion on that amendment, or whatever. I told you technical difficulties. I got all frazzled. So if you could please take the vote on the amendment, Ms. Hinojos.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Senna.
Yes.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now we can move on to the bill as amended without recommendation. Any new questions or comments? Ms. Hinojos?
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Senna.
Yes.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'd like to request immediate action.
Okay. A second from Councilor Senna. Thank you. Ms. Hinojos?
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Senna.
Yes.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Councilor Pena, you have R221.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So R221 is approving the Albuquerque Age-Friendly Action Plan and directing the City of Albuquerque's Department of Senior Affairs to use the aging population study to implement the plan. And the study was done in 2020, and Director Sanchez has given us a report on this. But Director, if Ana Sanchez, if you would like to just speak on R221.
Before that, I think that we have sorry, Director, we have a second from Councilor Borrego, it looks like, and maybe Councilor Senna. And thank you, Director Sanchez, if you want, Ana Sanchez, because we have both directors on here, I believe. If you want to go ahead and fill us in, please.
Madam Chair, members of the council, certainly very excited and grateful for this resolution. This really is going to make aging a topic of priority for the city, and the department is very proud to be able to help lead this resolution forward. We certainly are looking for ways in which to lead age-friendly efforts. Not only that's going to make it better for our older adults, but for generations to come is what we really need to think about as a city. We are going to continue to evaluate our own programs and services. We know we have a tremendous opportunity, but we need to also build our own capacity inside Senior Affairs to work stronger with other organizations and community groups to strengthen new efforts to be able to take care of our older adults as we all continue to age. So certainly this resolution will allow us to provide updates to the council, and we're very excited to share that work as it continues to evolve.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Pena?
Thank you, Director. I appreciate all the work you're doing there at Senior Affairs. So I look forward to this. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Councilor Pena and also thank Director Sanchez. You know, every time that I'm at Los Volcanes Senior Center and talking with a lot of the constituents, they will tell me, hey, we just moved here from West Virginia, or we moved from all across the nation, even without having family ties to the city, and just asking them, what brought you here? And they said, well, we visited once and we saw what services we provide for our seniors, and it's something that you don't see across the nation. And you know, I know that we're doing tremendous at Senior Affairs, and I know we can always improve, as of course that was mentioned, that we do have an aging population, but I just want to recognize the phenomenal work that Senior Affairs does and how we really are attracting many of our seniors across the nation to move here because of that.
Thank you, Councilor Sena. Thank you, Director. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Hinojos, if you'll please take a vote.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Bassan,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda item M is R223, amending the official list of city council meetings from January 2022 through December 2022. This is for Councilor Benton, and I would like to move this without recommendation.
Second. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Councilor Borrego. With the second. Any questions or comments, councilors? Okay. I have my own comments, but I'm going to reserve them for the meeting. If we can go ahead and get a vote on that, Ms. Hinojos?
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
thank you. Councilor Pena,
Yes.
Councilor Sena,
Yes.
Councilor Bassan,
Yes.
that passes unanimously.
And moving on to agenda item N, R226. Councilor Pena?
This is really your bill. So Madam Chair, if you want to proceed with it, I'm here to support you.
All right, fair enough. I tried. R226 is establishing a redistricting committee pursuant to Article 4, Section 3 of the City Charter to review and make recommendations concerning the 9 council districts repealing enactment R 2010-103 and R 10-109. I move a do pass. Thank you, Councilor Pena and Sena. On that, any questions or comments? Councilor Borrego.
Councilor Bassan and Councilor Pena, I was working on a redistricting bill also. And then I found out that you guys already had one. So I was wondering if I could co-sponsor this with you, even though I know I'm going to be gone after December 31st, but I would just love to be able to offer any input before I leave.
I'm fine with that, Councilor. Councilor Pena?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay. So if we can just make sure to add on Councilor Borrego as a co-sponsor, that would be great. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Hinojos.
Councilor Borrego,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Basan,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, Counselor Pena, this time it's all you. R227, agenda item O.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's appropriating funds to the capital implementation program for the 2021 general bond obligation program. Sorry, I stated that incorrectly. Let me rephrase that. Appropriating funds to the capital implementation program for the 2021 general obligation program. And this is by request. So I don't know if the administration, I see Director Montoya, if you would want to speak on this, Director, we'd appreciate it.
And before we get started, Director, I see Councilor Borrego with a second. Thank you. Go ahead, Director.
Actually, Madam Chair and Councilor Pena, the sponsor of the legislation, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, but more specifically, we are asking for immediate action on this bill simply because it ties into the sale of the bonds early next year.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments, councilors?
Counselor, Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Counselor Pena for all the time she's put into this work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hinojos?
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Basan,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I'll go ahead and make the motion for immediate action.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Pena, Councilor Sena. Ms. Hinojos?
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Basan,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. There being no further business this evening, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.